Hello everyone! Today we are going to go through my entire drugstore collection. I saw Kelly Gooch do this video and I thought it was so fun and I wanted to do the same, and I thought it would be a fun way to just kind of highlight my collection and all the drugstore pieces I have. I will say I do have way less drugstore products than I do have high-end products. There are some categories in here where I don't have drugstore products at all, but obviously there's nothing wrong with drugstore products. I have still a decent amount of drugstore products to go through. So if you're new here, hi, my name is Vivian. I'm a robotics engineer with a love for all things beauty and makeup related. Please like and subscribe if you aren't already. And with that being said, let's just hop into it. So first are all of my kind of base products. So I have quite a few different color correctors, and then I have one concealer. These first two I want to point out are from LA Girl. These are the Pro Color Foundation Mixing Pigments. I have the white one and the blue one. The white one is just to lighten up any foundations that are too dark for me, but the blue one is to help correct any foundations that are a little bit too orange. I find that a lot of more warm leaning foundations tend to be a little too orange, so I like having this in there to just mix things up a little bit and be able to get a better shade match for me. So I have another blue color corrector from e.l.f. This is from their Camo Concealer line. This is technically the Camo Color Corrector, but it is just another blue color corrector, again, for when my foundations are a little bit too orange leaning. This one is a doe foot applicator compared to the LA Girl ones are like pumps that you can pump out, but this one works just as well, and I sometimes like that this one is much smaller because then I am able to travel with it a little bit easier. I also have this one from LA Girl. This is the LA Girl Pro Conceal, and it is a green color corrector. I am an olive undertone, and I find that a lot of foundations are not super olive, so I have this to try and mix in some green into some of my foundations. This one is a brush tip. I think you're supposed to just put this on your face, but I usually just squeeze some of this out onto a palette and then mix it in with my foundations. So just another color corrector to help correct some undertone differences that there may be. This next thing is from NYX. This is the color correcting palette, the color correcting concealer palette. So it has a couple different colors here. There's a green, purple, a couple peaches, a darker brown, which I don't use, and then a yellow. I typically use my fingers with this and just kind of apply it underneath my under eyes if I'm feeling maybe a little bit too dark in the under eyes. This green one I usually use for correcting redness on any pimple patches, and I don't really use the yellow, purple, or this brown that much. I typically stick with these two shades here. Lastly, I have my NYX Bear With Me Concealer Serum. This is in the shade Beige. I did have another one of these in the shade Golden that I finished up in my Project Pan. This is a really nice concealer. I do really like it. The only reason I put the one in my Project Pan was because I do have both of them and I don't think I need both of them. This is a little bit light on me right now just because it is kind of peak summer, and I mean my face and my body is just a little bit more tanned, but it is pretty. I like this concealer a lot. It's really hydrating and it just sits really nicely on my under eyes. So I have a couple different bronzers and contours here, mostly creams, and I have one powder. They're all also from only two different brands. So I have a couple from e.l.f. and a couple from Makeup Revolution. The first thing I want to talk about is my e.l.f. Putty Bronzer. This was in my Project Pan for a while and I did end up hitting pan on it. So if you want to check that out, be sure to check out my Project Pan series again. But this is a really good, pretty lightweight and pretty natural cream bronzer. I think it's really nice if you are just getting into cream bronzer and need like a cream bronzer option. I do really like it though, and you know, I'm glad that I hit pan on it. I've gotten a lot of good use out of this. The next cream bronzer I have is from Makeup Revolution. It's just called the Ultra Cream Bronzer. I have this one in the shade Medium. I have my e.l.f. Putty Bronzer in the shade Honey Drip. This is a really good cream bronzer. I really enjoy it. It's much more pigmented than the e.l.f. one though, so I would not recommend this one for beginners. I do like it though. It's a really good formula. It blends out really easily. It lasts really well on my skin, but this is a really good cream bronzer option if you are looking for something that's a little bit more pigmented. So I'm gonna kind of talk about these two in the same vein. This is technically a concealer. This is the Makeup Revolution Eye Bright concealer. I have this in a dark shade though, so this is a much deeper shade. I bought this to be a somewhat dupe for the Charlotte Tilbury contour one before all the dupes existed. So you can see here, I just swatched it. It is a much cooler tone and it is pretty dark and pigmented. Similarly, this is the e.l.f. Halo Glow contour wand. This is in the shade light medium, and this was definitely supposed to be a dupe for the Charlotte Tilbury contour wand. So they both come with sponge tip applicators. So shade wise, you can see there's a really big difference there. The e.l.f. one is much more light compared to the Makeup Revolution one. They're both still cool in undertone, but this one ends up looking a lot more natural on my skin than this one. This one is also a little bit harder to blend out just because it is a concealer, so it is much more pigmented. They are both really pretty though. I use them for very different kind of vibes in my makeup. This one I'll use for more glam days, and this one I will use for just like the everyday. I do really like them. The e.l.f. one blends out really easily. It's a little bit newer to me. It's a little bit newer in my collection and just like a newer launch in general, but I do really like both of them. I think they both work really well, and they're both supposed to be like dupes for the Charlotte Tilbury contour ones, which I also have, but it is definitely way pricier than these two. And the last bronzer I have is also from e.l.f. This is the e.l.f. Primer Infused Bronzer. This is in the shade Forever Sunkissed. You can see that I did hit pan on this as well. Again, this was in my project pan for a while there. It is no longer in my project pan, but on my skin tone, this is a really lightweight bronzer. It doesn't show up on my skin super well. It's very similar to how the e.l.f. contour wand shows up on my skin, where it's just a little bit deeper than my actual skin tone, but I really like this formula. It's a really nice powder. It blends out really easily. It's pretty much no fuss because it's pretty light on my skin. I find that I can never really go overboard with it, so it's just a good option if you are looking for a powder bronzer from the drugstore. I have a couple different blush formulas here as well. Let's just first start off with the creams. The first one is the e.l.f. Putty Blush. This is in the shade Maldives. It's this really gorgeous kind of deeper berry tone. I really like this on my skin, especially in the winter. I find that it gives me kind of that cold girl makeup look. Very similar to the e.l.f. Putty Bronzer in terms of formula. It feels kind of powdery to the touch. It's not super pigmented, so I don't find that you can go really overboard with it. I think it's a really stunning formula, and I really like this shade for the winter. It's not super emollient either. Like I said, it feels very powdery. I know e.l.f. came out with the luminous putty blushes as well, so if you want something with a little bit more glow to them, that's also an option. This one is also around $6-ish, so again, pretty affordable. The one thing I will say about this is that the pots are a little bit small, definitely not the smallest in my collection, but they are small, so it's a little bit hard to get your brush in there. But if you have the like e.l.f. Putty Blush brush specifically, it does fit in there pretty well. The next cream blush I have in my collection is this one from Milani. This is the Cheek Kiss cream blush in the shade Nude Kiss. This is a very pretty blush formula as well. It is much more emollient than the e.l.f. putty blushes. You can even see just in the swatch, you can see how much glowier it is and how much more emollients it has to it. The shade is very pretty. It is kind of this like neutral pink-ish color. I don't know. Let me try it. It's focusing. It's trying its best. You can see it's just this like really pretty pink color. Again, it is much more emollient though, so I don't find that it lasts super well, but when you blend it out, it does kind of dry down to that powdery finish. The packaging of this is a little bit cheap, I'm not gonna lie. I feel like the hinge on the back here is already breaking, and I don't travel with this a lot, so it's just a little bit frustrating, but I mean, the formula is really nice. I think it's very pretty. It's not super pigmented again, but since it is more on that emollient side, it does fade a little bit faster than maybe some would want. Still really pretty though. I really like this blush. So the next blush I want to talk about is this one from ColourPop. This is one of their heart-shaped blushes. This is the pressed powder blush in the shade Forever Yours. It looks pretty intimidating in the packaging. I feel like it looks like a very bright red, but it is really sheer, and because it's so sheer, it doesn't really show up on the skin as intense as you would think. Even that swatch, I feel like it looks way less intense than it actually is. I do really like this. I think it's stunning, especially in the summer, because it is so bright but sheer. I don't find that I go overboard with it. So I really like this formula. I think it's a great formula. I just think the packaging itself is really cute. I really like the heart shape that it has. So this is the next blush I want to talk about. This is from Essence. This is the blush from Essence in the shade 20 Bespoke. This is one of my all-time favorite blush formulas. It is just so beautiful. It has a little bit of a sheen to it, so it adds a little bit of a glow, but there's no visible shimmer in there, so you're not going to get any shimmer or anything like that. This color is especially really nice because it's nice and neutral. I love this for every day. I mean, I've talked about this for ever on my channel. It's just one of my favorite formulas. This is my go-to blush when I don't know what blush I want to wear, or if I find that a blush I have on is too vibrant, I use this to tone it down a little bit. It's just such a good formula. I cannot stop raving about this blush. I talk about it all the time. I did get 2 new blushes recently. These are both formulas that I've tried before and love already, just in different shades. So this first one is from ColourPop. This is another pressed powder blush, but this is in the shade Prairie Air. It is a cooler toned pink shade, which you guys know I've been loving lately, and I think this is just really stunning. I really wanted a drugstore option for kind of that cooler toned pink, just because I talk about that so much. But again, I really like the ColourPop formula. It is nice and sheer and not super powdery, so it doesn't have a lot of kick up, but because it's so sheer, it builds really well, and I never find myself going overboard with it, especially for brighter colors like this one. These are like brand new to my collection, so I haven't worn them on my cheeks yet, but just looking at the color, this one is like pretty much a full dupe for Dior in 001 Pink. And similarly, this is the Essence The Blush in the shade 40 Beloved. Again, this is literally my favorite formula, blush formula. It's also super affordable. This one is just in more of a normal rosy pink color. This one is brand new. I haven't even swatched it yet, so let me swatch it for you guys. It's just more of like a neutral leaning pink rather than having something that is super bright. And again, this formula is amazing. It's one of my favorites, so highly recommend. They're also like $4, so I really don't think you can go wrong with one of these Essence The Blushes. The only thing I will say is that the packaging is pretty cheap. It'll break pretty easily, so it's not the best like traveling blush, but again, the formula is just really good. I really don't think you can go wrong with these blushes. So I don't have a ton of highlighters in general. I only have these 4 drugstore highlighters. I have 2 creams and 2 powders. The first one is the e.l.f. Halo Glow. I have mine in the shade medium, I believe. This is pretty much a dupe for the Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless Filter, I believe it's called. It's pretty much just a very pretty, shimmery, glowy base. I know some people use this as an actual foundation. I usually use this as like a glow booster or like a pinpointed highlighter. I don't really wear this all over my face, but it does leave a really pretty glow. I really like the formula of this. It blends out really easily. It's not something that's super finicky, so you can put this like on top of foundation. It's not going to lift up your foundation. It's just a really good formula, and it is much more affordable than the Charlotte Tilbury alternative. I have tried the Charlotte Tilbury one, and I do like this more. I find that it's not like as glowy as the Charlotte Tilbury one, and depending on your specific preference, I prefer that because I found that the Charlotte Tilbury one could be a little bit too glowy. I think this one is stunning though, and if you wanted to wear this just as a foundation, you definitely could. I think it works really well in that format. The other cream I have is from Flower Beauty. This is the Flower Beauty Day Glow. This is a cream potted highlighter. I think it's very stunning. You can see it's a little bit more icy, but it blends out to just having a really pretty like glow from within type of glow. I'm not sure how well that's picking up on camera, but it really is just like a beautiful glowy highlight. There are no actual shimmers in here. I believe this comes in like 2 different shades, so I think there's a darker shade too if you prefer that. The e.l.f. one comes in I think like 12 different shades, so definitely some variety there. I do really like both formulas. They're obviously 2 totally different in terms of like liquids and creams, but they're both really stunning, and they both leave like more of those glow from within type of highlights, which is my preference. So I'll say the same thing about these 2 as well. This one is the ColourPop Super Shock Cheek in the shade Lunch Money. It leaves a really pretty glow. It feels extremely creamy on this, like on your finger when you're swatching it. You can see it has kind of that like pearlescence to it, but it blends out really easily. Again, it leaves a really pretty glow without any visible shimmers or sparkles. I think it's just great. This one is definitely a little bit lighter, so this one just looks a little bit more icy on my skin. This is a stunning formula though. I just really like the way that looks. And lastly, this is also from Essence. This is the Pure Nude Highlighter. I think there are maybe a couple different shades of this, but this is in the shade 10 Be My Highlight. Again, it's just a really pretty like glow from within type of highlighter. There's not a lot of like base pigment to this, so it really just leaves a very soft glow. Again, the Essence packaging isn't great. It usually never is, so my component is broken. The lid just came completely off. I think these all give very similar effects. Like all of these different highlighters give pretty much the same effect on your skin. It's just different formula types. So obviously like there's the liquid, there's the cream, there's a baked formula, and then there's just the normal like pressed formula. So it really just depends on what your specific preference is. I really like all of these. I really think they all kind of give the same sort of effect on the skin though. Next I have some powders. The first one I want to talk about is the e.l.f. Halo Glow setting powder. I think this is a really great powder. The name Halo Glow is a little bit misleading because although it is kind of more of a radiant formula, there's no shimmer in here. I think it's stunning. It sets my makeup really well. I think it's a really good option for a loose setting powder for the drugstore. I have mine in the shade medium, and I think it's just a really good option. I think this is around $6. I think they repackage it so that the lid is the same color as the e.l.f. Halo Glow like liquid filter. If you buy like a new one, I think it just has the newer packaging, but it's a really good formula. I really like it. Highly recommend. Other powder I want to talk about is the Essence All About Matte Fixing Compact Powder. This is a mattifying powder, so it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. It is very mattifying. It does leave a little bit of a flashback, so if you like are taking pictures, this probably wouldn't be my go-to powder. It does mattify really, really well, but if you use too much, it does end up looking kind of cakey. So like definitely don't go overboard with this, but I do have oily skin, especially like peak summertime. I really like this because it does mattify my T-zone really, really well, and I don't tend to take a lot of pictures, so this works for me, but I can see it not working for absolutely everybody. I like it. I would not recommend this to everyone though, but if you do have really oily skin, I do like it to just mattify a little bit. The last powder I have here is the e.l.f. Prime and Stay Finishing Powder. I have mine in the shade Light Medium. I heard this was a dupe for the Pat McGrath Under Eye Blurring Powder. I don't have that powder, so I cannot confirm nor deny. This is one of e.l.f.'s like really old powders. The packaging is definitely reminiscent of that, but I think it's a really good powder. I think it kind of sets everything in place. It smooths out your skin without looking super cakey. I will say, like, it definitely looks cheap. It definitely kind of looks like Claire's makeup, but I also think it was like $4. So again, nothing to be really mad about. I do like it. I use it quite often just to like set my face. Can't really say much more about this. Out of the 3 powders that I talked about, I think this one is probably my most used, just because it is kind of easy and nice and small, and I don't know, I just tend to pick this up over the loose powder or the like super mattifying powder. I have exactly one setting spray from the drugstore. This is the NYX Plump Finish setting spray with electrolyte mix. This is fine. The sprayer on this is quite intense. You do definitely get like peed on a little bit, but it's fine. It's not my favorite setting spray. I do think it leaves my skin a little bit too shiny for my liking, just because I am more oily, but it's fine. I want to say I'm about halfway done with this, and I kind of just leave this in my travel makeup bag just as like an option because it is smaller than all of my other setting sprays. The rest of these are like eye products, various different eye products. So there are a couple single shadows from ColourPop, mascaras, some brow things, eyeliners, things like that. So the first 3 I want to talk about are these 3. These are from ColourPop. These are the Super Shock shadows. I have the shades Tassel, Fine Pearl, and Ritz. Ritz is supposedly a ColourPop Space Cowboy dupe. It is very pretty in my opinion. It kind of just leaves like a really pretty scattered shimmer effect, which I really like. It does have a little bit of a base pigment. The base pigment is pretty much my actual skin tone though, so I feel like you can't really see it that well, but it does leave a really pretty finish. This is kind of my like more glam eyeshadow topper type of product. I think it's stunning though. It's one of my favorites. This next one is the color Fine Pearl. It's more of a gold shadow, so more of a gold base pigment and gold glimmers as well. Not as sparkly as Fine Pearl, but it does still leave a really pretty kind of scattered sparkle effect. I'm not even sure how well you can see that. I feel like it's focusing on the wrong thing, but still a really pretty product. I use this just kind of on the everyday, just tapping this all over my eyes. And this last one in the shade Tassel is my newest one. This feels much more creamy than the other 2. The other 2 have dried out a little bit. This one is definitely more icy than the first 2 as well. The base pigment is more of a white color. I will say the finishes of Fine Pearl and Tassel are pretty similar. It's just the shifts are different. So again, Fine Pearl is more of a gold shift, whereas Tassel is definitely more icy and more like a silver blue type of shift. Out of all of these, like I said, I think ColourPop Ritz is my favorite just because I prefer more of that like wet looking sparkle shade rather than like these 2, which are more of the shimmery type of colors. They are all really pretty though. The next shadow I want to talk about is also from ColourPop. This is the ColourPop Jelly Much eyeshadow in the shade Come to Play. This was a part of the Hocus Pocus 2 collection, and I really only keep this because I do really like the sparkle this has. It is pretty dried out now though, unfortunately. I've only had this, well, it's been about a year, so I know ColourPop products in general don't last the longest, but I do think this was a really pretty eyeshadow. It's very much like a shimmer with like a purple base. It has different size glitters in there, so probably not everyone's cup of tea, but I thought it was stunning. I think it is such a pretty, fun shade, especially for like Halloween looks, you know, like more glammed up, more just like different vibes. This is pretty dry though, so I think I am gonna have to declutter it, unfortunately. I do think it's really pretty though. It has like blue shifts to it. I have a couple different mascaras. They all look really similar in packaging for some reason. The first one is the e.l.f. Lash and Roll. You can see it's still in the box because I haven't used it yet. I plan on using this soon, but I have a lot of mascaras open right now and I didn't want to open this one yet. These two, this one is the Maybelline Sky High Waterproof Mascara. I think I can get rid of this at this point. It's pretty dried out at this point, and again, I have so many open mascaras right now that I just need to get rid of some anyway. I liked this mascara. I prefer the Lash Sensational mascara more, so I think it's the same kind of color as this, but the tube is like fatter. I just like the wand of that one more. I like more curved wands, whereas this one is kind of like the typical like straight plasticky one. Like I said, I did like the mascara. I have other ones that I prefer more though. I've just had a lot open. This one's been open for a while, so I could probably stand to declutter that. And then this last one is from Ulta Beauty. This is the New Heights Lifting Mascara. This one has a much smaller wand than some of the other mascaras in my collection. It just has like a shorter one in general, but it's the same kind of plastic bristle-y mascara. I did like this. It didn't smudge on me and it's not waterproof. Definitely does not hold a curl though. It is too heavy for my lashes to hold a curl, so I have to use a primer underneath. That's fine. Most of my mascaras I have a primer on underneath anyway. Again, it is getting pretty old though, so I don't think I'm gonna hold on to this for that much longer. For right now, it's still fine, I think. There's still a lot of product in here and it still hasn't really dried down much in terms of like the formula itself. I still feel like the formula itself is pretty wet. I have a clear brow gel in here. This is the NYX Control Freak. This isn't even open yet because I've been trying to make my way through my Kosas Clear Air Brow. That is taking a really long time. So I have a couple other different clear brow gels as well that are open right now, and so I just didn't feel the need to open this one. This came as like a free gift with purchase, I believe, so it's just kind of been sitting here and I just haven't felt the need to use it. I do remember using this when I was in high school, like my freshman year of college, because I wanted to start getting into makeup, and this was like one of the first products I bought for myself for my brows. So I don't remember how I feel about this, and again, I haven't opened it yet, so I don't know. I have it though. I plan on using it relatively soon, as soon as I finish up my Kosas Air Brow. This next product is something that I used to not like, but have been getting really into lately. This is the Milani Weekend Brow. This is a brow pen. I think this is in the shade Espresso. I have just been really liking it just leaked all over me, so cannot even say that maybe this is time to let go. But usually when it's not leaking on me, it leaves really like fine brow strokes. I'm not entirely sure what's happening with this right now. I think maybe it's broken and maybe I need a new one. I think this is the sign that I need to buy a new one. So I did really like this when it wasn't doing that. I don't entirely know what just happened there, but yeah, when it doesn't do that, I did really like it. I think I just need to get another one. I know NYX makes one too that is really similar, so maybe I'll try that one instead of this one. I don't use this to fill in my entire brows. I usually use a pencil to fill in my brows, but then on the really sparse areas, I'll use this to draw a couple brow hairs just to fill it in a little bit more and make it look a little bit more natural. I have a couple different eyeliners here. This one is the not Milani, this is the Physicians Formula Eye Booster. This is the waterproof version. I think this is a really good eyeliner. I can get really precise lines with it. It is a brush tip, so I find that it doesn't drag. It's waterproof as well, which is nice. Really don't have anything bad to say about that. It doesn't smudge on me, which is pretty much the only thing I need out of a liquid eyeliner. These next two are from LA Girl. These are the Pastel Dream Auto Eyeliners. This first one is in the shade Lavender, which is just this really pretty lavender purple shade. It is a cream liner. It is retractable, which is very nice. And this second one is in the shade Baby Pink. Again, retractable. They are very creamy, they blend out really nicely, and they do set down after a bit. And they're really affordable. I think these were maybe around $5. This one may or may not be a little bit of a cheat. This is from Beauty Bay. This is the Aquabated Liner Palette. This is a really nice liquid liner palette for when I want to do more fun graphic looks. I think I've used every shade so far except this neon orange one, but I think it works really well. You just spray a little bit of water in there and it creates a little graphic liner moment. I really like them. I would buy this again, honestly. So I have a couple different eyeshadow palettes. Again, these are maybe cheating a little bit. These are both from Beauty Bay. This is the Pastels and the Utopia palette. They're just these really pretty, really fun eyeshadow palettes that are pretty much all colors. I think when I bought these, both of these, it was like 2 for $10. So I got both of these for $5 each. I think these are great palettes for how affordable they are and how vibrant the colors actually are. So I highly recommend these. I really like Beauty Bay's eyeshadow formula. It is definitely very powdery. These pastels can look a little bit chalky, but I think the payoff is really good, especially the ones in this palette. The payoff is really good for how much they actually cost. So highly recommend these. These are pretty much my only super colorful palettes I have at this point in my collection. I have my Revolution and Soph Super Spice palette. I really only keep this around because it does have all of the different like primary colors, which I don't have in any of my other palettes. It has some of the like neutrally brown shades as well. This is okay. It's not my absolute favorite palette, but it does the job. It has the pure white and the pure black too, which again is not found in a ton of, well, the black kind of is, but the pure white isn't found in a ton of different palettes. The Lockdown shade, this lilac color, is definitely a dud for me. It really doesn't show up on my skin at all, and if I want kind of that pastel purple, I usually go in with my Beauty Bay palette for that color. In general, I kind of just keep this around as like an auxiliary palette, like just something that I can reach for if I need a specific color for like a very specific look. So it's not something that I reach for very often, but I do have it, I do like it, and I have a very like specific use for it, so I am planning on keeping this for a while. These next three are all kind of just like your average neutrally colors. So I have my ColourPop Going Coconuts, I have my e.l.f. Bite Size Eyeshadow Quad in the Cream and Sugar colorway, and then I have my Maybelline Nudes of New York palette. This was my very first eyeshadow palette that I ever bought. It is just your average neutrals colors. These shadows are pretty powdery, not my absolute favorite formula. I don't tend to reach for this very often, to be honest, but you know, I have it, it's here, and it's kind of sentimental just because it was my very first palette. I mean, I still use it from time to time, but definitely not my most used neutrals palette. This e.l.f. Bite Size Quad is really nice for just on the go. It kind of has your basics. I just throw this all over the lid. I usually use this as a shadow liner, and then I kind of mix these two to just put all over the top of the lid. This shade is a little bit too icy on its own for like a normal eyeshadow look, so mixing them together just kind of negates how icy that is on my eyes. It's just a really solid formula. These are also like $4, so again, I really don't think you can go wrong with these. I think these are pretty great for how small they are. This one is definitely my favorite palette, especially neutrals palettes from the drugstore. This is the ColourPop Going Coconuts palette. This is my go-to travel palette. I think it does a great job of what it's supposed to do. It has everything that I could possibly need in a just everyday like type of eyeshadow look. These shimmers are stunning. They're definitely pretty impactful. It's more of like a shimmer than a like glitter topper shade. It has like your crease colors. It has a dark brown if you want to do a shadow liner. It has like a setting shade as well. I think it's just a really good versatile palette, and again, nice and small and compact, and you can see that my palette specifically, the writing has pretty much all rubbed off because I use this all the time. It is my like go-to travel palette. And the last palette I have here is my Makeup Revolution and Friends collab palette. I don't really use this, to be honest. I don't tend to reach for these like super bright pinks and purples very often, but I do keep it because I really like the packaging, not in terms of the actual packaging itself, because there's a lot of wasted space. The folding mechanism, like these hinges, aren't the smartest. I feel like they get stuck a lot, but I grew up watching Friends. I'm very much like a Friends girl, and I just like the door frame. Like, I just like the outer packaging itself. I don't love the formula of these. I find that some of them stain my eyelids, especially this like neon pink right here and this like darker pink right there. It's just not my ideal palette. I keep it around though because I like Friends and I like the door frame. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much the only reason why I keep this palette. So the rest of these are all lip products. They're mostly lip liners, but I have a few different glosses as well. The first gloss is from e.l.f. This is the e.l.f. lip lacquer in the shade Bubbles. It's honestly not my favorite gloss, not the most hydrating, not the most long lasting, but I do like the shimmers that are in here. I think it's just like a really pretty gloss. And you can see that I've worn this on top of like different lip glosses and lipsticks, so it's a little bit tinted at this point. I have honestly just been trying to make my way through this because I do have a lot of glosses in my collection and I don't really need this one in my collection, but I also don't want to declutter it because I do feel like I could finish this pretty quickly. So it's not my favorite formula and I am close to being done with it. I think I'm about halfway through with it, but you know, it's here. I am gonna try and finish this relatively soon. I think I can do it. The next product I have here is from e.l.f. as well. This is, I think, the Glossy Lip Stain. This is in the shade Pinkies Up. On me, it starts off this like just kind of neutrally pink shade, and then when you wipe it off, it stains a little bit darker and a little bit more red. I like this. It's a good lip stain. It does stain my lips like relatively well. It's not my favorite formula like ever in general, but I do like it. I keep it around for specific reasons, especially when I want my makeup to last like a really, really long time. I don't think it's very hydrating whatsoever, but I mainly use this more for the stain than anything else. This next one is from NYX. This is the NYX Butter Gloss. It's not in focus. This is in the shade Apple Crisp. Even though it does seem like a brighter color, but it's not super pigmented, and so I find that it doesn't look like super weird on my lips. It doesn't look like I'm wearing a full-on lipstick. I do think it's really pretty. These aren't like the most hydrating lip products, and this has been around for a really long time, so I feel like it's cult classic. It's not my favorite, but it does the job, and I do really like that color and the tint that it has on my lips. It's not super opaque, which I really appreciate. And then lastly, I have a bunch of lip liners from NYX. I have a couple that are matte and a couple that are just like their normal formula. I would say half is their normal formula and then half is their matte. So let's swatch these first. This first one is in the shade Spicy. This is just like a red color, just so I have a singular red lip liner that works for me. This next one is in the shade Sandstorm. So this one right here is the shade Sandstorm. This is supposed to be a Makeup Forever dupe for Anywhere Caffeine. I think it's similar but not exactly the same. This shade right here is the shade Soft Spoken. This one is in my project pan right now, so this is my most used lip liner, and you can just see how small it is compared to all of the rest of them. This one is a really nice shade for every day for me, just because it's a little bit deeper than my natural lip tone, but nothing that's like too crazy. These are the like normal formulas that are not matte. This first one is Peekaboo Neutral. This is supposed to be a Charlotte Tilbury dupe, I believe. I don't love the Charlotte Tilbury pink color, but I mean, I have it, so I'm gonna use it. I think lip liners are easier because you can kind of pair them with different things to change the color of them. This is a really good formula though. The matte ones are much more stiff than the original like cream formula, so just be wary of that. This next one is in the shade Nude Truffle. Again, just like a darker brown. This is my preferred like lip contour color out of the NYX ones that I have. I think it's really pretty. And then this last one is in the shade Soft Brown, which is for me just like another everyday shade. So this one definitely needs to be sharpened soon. They all kind of have their own place in my collection. I do like all of them. The red one is definitely my least used just because I don't wear red lips that often, but I do think it's important to have like a red lip liner in my collection just in case I do want to wear a bold red lip. So this is everything I have in my collection that is drugstore. I definitely have more high-end products in my collection than drugstore products, but I wanted to just kind of show you guys the wide range of products that I have that are drugstore. You definitely don't need to spend high-end prices to get a quality makeup look. Let me know if you guys do want to see a high-end version of this. I feel like that would be fun as well. That video would take a lot longer than this video because I definitely have way more high-end products than I do drugstore products, but I would be happy to do that video for you guys. So yeah, let me know what you guys think of this video. Let me know what your favorite drugstore product is. Maybe I'll check it out in my next Ulta haul. I hope you guys are having a great day today. If you liked this video, be sure to like and subscribe if you aren't already, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye guys!